All right, guys, we're on give it up for day 85 of becoming King Ballsack. Shout out to Rin. All right, guys, so 85 days in, we're almost at day 90. And people might be like, oh, why are you still counting? I don't need to, but it's really more so for the titles or just so we can kind of document like the intellectual changes and all their changes. But man, where do I even begin, guys? Oh my goodness. I mean, a couple of days ago, I basically experienced probably the best meditation session I've ever had. I also learned a lot about my mentor because I have like a spiritual mentor, who's also like really into this, and he's been a big help. But it feels like since that day, things are really starting to like click, like kind of the awareness and everything. Like you guys know that quote where it's like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Yeah, quote's very true because I feel like, and let's see, I would say I'd encourage everyone definitely read your Bibles, but I would say at least for me, for some reason, Buddhism, Hinduism, and actual like yoga and like the actual like how to breathe and meditate, that part was always more appealing to me because I feel like if you take like the beliefs from the Bible and like the unconditional love, law of detachment, all those things, and you combine that with the actual physical practice of meditation, like you can definitely develop that stillness to get a lot closer to God. And that's gonna kind of go into something I've learned about recently. I learned more about Kundalini, the chakras, Pranayama, which is a really good breathing exercise. I'll briefly demonstrate. So usually when you meditate, you're gonna inhale, then you exhale, but the exhale is longer. We're gonna flip that in this case. So the mantra is inhale, hum, and then a quick exhale, and you will audibly say "saw." People describe it as like the breath of fire because it's like a forceful exhale. But if you do that and then meditate, game changing, honestly. Definitely game changing. In certain yoga traditions, that's like a requirement basically. They'll do that for like 5 or whatever minutes, then they'll go into their actual meditative practice. But I've learned about that. It's it's not the Eightfold Path. That's Buddhism. The yogis, they have their own thing. It's like the eight limbed something, but it's pretty cool. But the main thing I've learned recently is there's three types of yoga. You have karma yoga, which is like what most people would refer to as like actual yoga, like the actual movements and stuff. But it's also like the actual practice of meditation. Then there's bhakti yoga, and then there's I forgot the third one, but pretty much the first one is like the emotional, right? That's kind of the way we feel, you could woman, right? Since we're all retainers, yeah. They're usually emotional. They feel everything, and that's not bad. Then there's the intellectuals, which would be most men, think of the philosophers and everything. And then lastly, there's the physical aspect. Now, what I've noticed now is, and this is where I'm like, you have to keep retaining because it's like you start to realize all three are very important. You could argue they're equally important, honestly, because you could have the emotional and intellectual ability, but if you have a weak body, your organs and stuff won't work properly. So you won't be able to channel Kundalini properly to be able to reach enlightenment. So you really need all three. And that's kind of the goal is to become balanced so you can do what's called a royal yoga. That's the one I think Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, which is like basically their Bible. But yeah, it's just lately it's been like, damn, there's so much levels to this. Like and it still feels like it's only the beginning, literally. Like it's really crazy. But then you also realize like how difficult it is. Like today I was at work and I was like, I would say my thoughts are pretty still, but not in the way that like probably like monks and like people that have actually reached that level are. Like, I mean, like really like if you were to like focus on a singular point, it's like you could focus on that singular point, right? But you still like you'll still hear things like it's almost like some people, I guess, the videos I've been watching, it's like the ability to focus on like one thing and ignore everything else, like the physical sensation, all that stuff. Because I've noticed when I meditate, after a certain while, it's like the numbness goes away and stuff. And I guess that's the body just like, or the mind just being like, oh, like you've detached from that physical feeling, which is really crazy. Like I lost my train of thought, but Let me jump to my next point because I've been watching. I don't watch as much retention content now, but I feel like there's this everyone's talking about, oh, like it's okay to relapse or it's in the world if you relapse, and you're literally not gonna die if you relapse. But it's almost like anyone that's seen JJK, right? We all know what a heavily restriction is, because remember, the whole goal is to procreate with as many people as possible. So every time you goon or whatever, the body thinks you're doing that, so it thinks you're winning, right? But we have awareness and consciousness, so we know that's not the case. Now, if you go against that actual purpose, right, in exchange, you get the ability to have this awareness and these thoughts, the physical benefits, the attraction, all this stuff they talk about. But honestly, for me, it's like, it's life or death, because if you relapse, it's not that I'll lose the awareness. I'll still have these thoughts, but it's also more so like, it's a little hard to comprehend how much you lose from relapsing, but intuitively I know it's not worth it, right? It's not something I need to test. Because remember, if you treat it like its actual purpose and you only do it to procreate, that's really the only time. Because if you're not creating life, it's not worth it to lose that energy. But you see, people relapse because they don't recognize how important it is. And that's where it's like, I've learned from like the types of yoga. You can understand something intellectually, but then there's like there's a level of understanding, I think, beyond emotionally, and then even above that, which makes you like which makes something like really click in the way that you won't like go against it, like, because for me it's like retention that's not like, and remember, there's two parts, right? You have the people that substitute abstain and they don't have the confidence and they kind of use it as an excuse, like not to approach people or go out. That's bad. But then you have the people that do it too much and they're constant releasing. The goal is to have this like healthy balance where you have control over your lusts, but that's why you got to develop all three aspects of the yoga so you can like actually be a complete solid being. Because I feel like there's still a lot of discord on the whole retention thing. Like, it's literally a lifestyle, right? And this is where I'm like, it's very important, because I feel like a lot of retainers, no one's really talking about like the actual act of meditation, like, and that's kind of gonna go into some interpretations of God, where it's like the stillness, like that serene quiet, that's God, but not in the way that most of you guys think, right? So remember, when your mind is truly quiet, it allows you to actually interpret your reality. Because remember, you're not God, but you're not separate from God. But only from that genuine stillness can you properly observe truth. Because remember, the ego, it's an illusion. So, and without strengthening your ego, you're still viewing reality from a false sense. So, that's why, that's one of the many benefits of being enlightenment. Now, at least from my understanding, there's probably brief periods where one could make decisions from that genuine stillness. But the more I learn, I'm like, no, like that point is like really, really far, because people develop their whole lives to that point and they still have idle and a bunch of thoughts. But as I develop this awareness, I'm like, wow, there's so much levels to this too. And that's why I'm like, it's really important. You take, read your Bible, but like actually learn like how to meditate, like learn about the chakras, learn about Kundalini. All this stuff is important, because that's ultimately going to lead, remember the whole thing is self-improvement, right? But self-improvement is always, it stays in the external. No one really talks about meditation. It's just, oh, eat right and go to the gym, which those parts are important, but the most important part is the development of the mind. And that requires like an actual meditation practice. Like for me, like going forward, like daily meditation. If I got to get 2 hours of sleep to meditate before I tackle my day, so be it. But it's actually genuinely that important. Because if you don't meditate, there's no, like, the closest way to get to God is through meditation. Because that's when the thoughts are, the ego is in this quiet state. So like you have to learn how to meditate. And I was watching this video and it's kind of crazy, because like the way we think of meditation, like it's like I haven't actually been meditating, but I am, if that makes sense. But I will say, if anyone is doing like guided meditation, I would recommend to stop and I would just sit in silence, because that's actual meditation. That's the silent prayer, as we call it. So definitely, like just sit in silence, do your breath work, whatever, but definitely learn to sit in silence, because you have to develop that part too. Like, yeah, go to the gym and that stuff, because remember, the benefits will come. And the more, because like there's so much stuff I can't even explain, because it's like, there's science to it too. Yeah, you retain your semen, like your prolactin's lower, so it's gonna make your dopamine and stuff better. Testosterone and like prolactin, I think, are inversely. No, it's testosterone and dopamine, but we'll go into the science more another day, but it's like, regardless of, you don't have to understand the science yet, but just keep retaining. But we got to put a hard stop when these people are like, oh, it's okay to relapse. Maybe if you genuinely desire to marry that person, but I feel like if your standards are high enough, like you'll really treat relapse like as like, damn, like think of like fucking Goku, the whole spirit bomb to defeat Kid Buu. That's what you're doing every time you relapse. So, and you realize how long it took Goku to gather that energy. So yeah, it's like, do you want to fucking throw that energy into someone that's like you might not even see next week, or in someone that you might spend the rest of your life with? And it's just like you start developing all these thoughts, and you realize like this shit's not a game. It's like you're developing these thoughts, and it's gonna make you like, I mean, it's serenely powerful, right? That's why like one day I'm definitely gonna go like. That's why you need to travel too. But like me, it's more so like I gotta go to India, Japan, China, and like go to these temples and like learn from actual people that have dedicated basically their whole life, to meditation and self mastery. Because I feel like in the West over here, it's like no one talks about this. I haven't seen it. That's why I started kind of doing these videos, because I felt like the actual meditation part, or even the whole sexual transmutation, because if anyone's not aware, like you can actually have sex and not orgasm, but there's actual benefits to that too. Like that also gets you very close to God. There's like ancient like text. I forgot the type it's called, but yeah, they talk about sex without orgasm, which is apparently even more blissful than the actual orgasm. But it's like you have to have that awareness to even like know it's that important, then to seek it out, then to find a partner that's also want to do that too. And it's like there's so much layers. It's like you see why so few people do it. I'm sure plenty of people have tried to meditate, but you kind of stop. Just like retention. You know, like anyone that's only on like a week, like it's okay. Like you're doing better than 99% of the population, because it's like it's very hard. It gets easier because you recognize there's so much benefits, and that's where I'm like I can't go back, because like literally whether it's the Buddha, Krishna, like everyone talks about like mastery of lust. It's just in the yoga text and the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about it more because it's key for meditation. But if you master your lust like that like you become an actual, I mean, genuine monster, like, but in a good way, not in a bad way. Like, like nothing will be able to shake you. And that's kind of the point, because I feel like everyone's got goals. Everyone always talks about like actual manifestation, but I feel like what needs to be talked about more is the actual like seeking self-mastery, like, and that's kind of what yoga means. It's like union, but it's like self-mastery, someone that like is kind of seeking truth. And that's the part I'm definitely going to push more too. As I learn things, I'll of course share it more. But it's been like really fascinating learning why like meditation is like so important, and why like certain people just dedicate their lives to mastering that trait. Because I feel like people think, oh, meditation's only for monks. But think about it like this way, right? A monk's external environment, it does change, but not in the way that your life changes, or as someone that lives in the city, or like in any populated area. There's so much more change here, if I really think about it. And this is where I'm like, you start to really observe your thoughts, and like you question everything around you. If our worlds change more than their worlds, wouldn't it be more beneficial for us to develop the stillness to not react to so much change, since we're more exposed to it? And that's why I'm like, meditation is even more important for us than monks. It's important for everyone, but definitely, if you're very busy or doing a lot of things, it's definitely important that you meditate like consistently. Like, it should be a daily non-negotiable. I don't know why this shit is taught in schools. Well, no, I do know why, because it's not that it's well, no, it is dangerous, but because everyone has this awareness, then that, I guess the big people wouldn't like that. But not to go into the whole conspiracy theory thing, but part of it is true. And as I learn more, like Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, a lot of people talk about sexual, like retaining your sexual energy. That like it's kind of crazy. But as you learn more, you kind of learn that everyone's kind of pointing to that universal truth. What is God? What is truth? But it requires you have to see past the external, and that requires like surrendering your ego, like being really confident, just having like mastery like over your mind and your body too. Because the video I was watching, it actually talks about like the prerequisite to yoga is like it's restraint, from alcohol, drugs, lust. It's like actual restraint. That's like the first thing. And then the second is like being like an observer. It's like 8 different terms, but it's a lot of layers to the whole like yoga thing. It's like really, really fascinating. This is gonna be a long video. I don't know I'm gonna yap for, but I guess I wanted to talk about everyone's always about the benefits, right? I'll say the most noticeable benefit has probably been like gym performance. Like I'll say if anyone's like plateaued, just retain. Like that'll break you out of every plateau, like genuinely. But I'll also say the least expected benefit, and I think this is where like remember retention is an amplifier. So for me, I was always a thinker. But you learn that's not really a bad thing. You just when you get more emotionally there, you learn there's other ways to think too. Like there's other ways to interpret words, because sometimes you can't, like you can look at someone, but you gotta feel what they're saying. Literally, it's things we innately have the ability to do, but the ego and like the lack of being present, it stops us from being able to do that. But when that awareness comes back, like you realize it's very, 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 very powerful because you're able to like see things and interpret things from people that like you weren't even aware of. Like people I've known from years, like good friends. It's like you see new parts of them, but you do that from at least the way my intellect would explain it. It's like you rest in the I am awareness and you see them as also an extension of yourself or as also a reflection of God. They're not separate from God the same way you're not separate from God. So they quite literally project you outward. Very good friend. She always tells me that, but it makes a lot of sense too, right? Because you're literally gods. Not in the literal sense because you're not infinite, but you're not separate from God. So you do manifest your reality through your thoughts, behaviors, and all this stuff. But a lot of I would say self-limiting beliefs are starting to become eradicated. I would say that's like the most unexpected benefit because I think I've always been like a thinker. But then I would say like, for me, it's like I always assumed you needed like 8, 9, 10 hours. And that's true probably for someone that's depleted. Yeah, because, you're depleting yourself more. So you're going to be more tired. So you need more sleep. But if you're retaining, it's been 85 days? I can't imagine like 200 plus. Maybe I could probably get away with 3-4 hours of sleep. And that's where I'm like, the benefits of retention are probably going to they're going to outweigh the logic of certain things. Like you'll just be able to move a certain way. You'll probably get so strong, fucking nuts will be the size of fucking planets. Not literally, of course, but you'll feel like that. And feeling like that too, I'd argue, is a really important part of the whole like benefits thing too. Because like definitely it's things will just happen to me. I'm just unfazed because you start to learn like this isn't the final reality. So it's like, why would I get upset, And you recognize how important your vibration or your energy is or your prana. So it's like, it's not worth to lower it. It's genuinely not worth to lower it. And you also kind of see people. Because remember, guys, like especially as men too, it's like, if they're not someone you've known from the beginning, like a really good friend, or they're not actively trying to build with you, or you don't genuinely get better being around them, they gotta go. I'm sorry. Like, they have to go. And it's not that it's selfish or egoic or whatever. No, it's not really about that. But if you're really gonna like pursue this retention grind properly, you gotta really, and I mean really, start bending your circle. Women too, because a lot of women they're here to drain you, like genuinely. Remember, they're here to drain you. All the times you've been with people that you wouldn't even consider marrying, like that could have gone into fucking actually retaining, the energy, meditation, transmuting into the gym. There's just bettering yourself. And it's like, damn, we waste a lot of time. That's why, like, the biggest key of retention, remember, it's a belief thing, too. I understand the intellectual, like, I can logically explain to you why some retention works, but you have to have that emotional part, too, where it's like, you recognize how important it is. Once you recognize that, it becomes, very easy. That's why it's easy for me to meditate now. It's easy for me to record these videos. I've always wanted to record, but now it's pretty effortless because, the things you want to do, where you can't run to the alcohol, you can't run to this, you can't run to that. It makes you're forced to kind of deal with these things. And you keep getting the awareness. And that's why for me, it's like, it's not even a question. There's nothing to test or relapse in because the conscious probably you can't even quantify like how much, you lose. And probably the only exception to that is if it's someone, you intend to marry. But even then, there's a cost to that too, because once you release, there's probably a period, where your vibration, I mean, literally, it is lowered because you did release life energy, so now maybe it's not as bad as we make it out to be, but you are losing something. And I'd also argue if you're manifesting that too, and that's where I'm like, that's important too. If you manifest that, oh, like a lot's gonna happen if I relapse, it'll intuitively make it so you won't relapse. But then if you do relapse, then you generally bad things might happen to you, and you might manifest that. I know people have talked about like again the car accidents after relapsing, but I think they've probably manifested that. I don't think that's literally what happened, or maybe it is. I don't know. I adjust myself. My God. But what else? If they're alive, let me see what other thoughts have I had. But I will say, it does with retention. It does make you because it's an amplifier, right? Like the goal is to like remember we're all spiritual. It's not about religion. If you think God's a cosmic man that you pray to that gives you blessings, sure. But what I don't want you guys to do is just kind of like pray that everything changes. Like there's no reason to pray. You're praying to the thing that you're not separate from, So it's almost like you're praying to yourself for change. But it's like why pray to yourself when you can take action, And it makes you realize like how powerful the mind is, like generally. Because I know if I keep seeking out this path, the consequence of it is every goal you want. And that's why for me, it's like we have goals, right? You want to take care of your family, you want to build a physique, you want to attract a good girl, you want to get married and have kids. But above all those goals is kind of enlightenment, self-mastery, self-improvement, or union with God, or whatever. Whatever, all religions, they have a different like name for it, but everyone's kind of seeking that point. Not literally, because some people, it's like you have to have the awareness, right? Like someone that doesn't believe the God, they don't have the awareness yet to understand that like that's something like that's literally you're here to seek that out, right? Because remember, the point before consciousness, that's God. The only way to understand that is to kind of get to the point where there's like it's almost like there's no thoughts. Literally, that's the stillness. But you have to have the awareness to seek that out, And not everyone's willing to do that because it's easy to be like, oh, there's no God, And that's the ego. That's a self-limited, belief. Because anyone that genuinely understands how powerful conscious and awareness is, it's impossible not to believe in God. Because, but I find most people when they say that, they're referring to the man above, that people pray to, and they wonder why nothing happens. I'm sure some atheists might debate me on that. And I'm glad to, but I feel like anyone that's like, because we're all innately spiritual. Like, there's the ability to feel people. Like, if someone cries and you cry with them, you're able to feel that. It's like you can't say God isn't real and have the ability to do that. Like the ability to be observer of your thoughts and be like God isn't real. It's just like no. Like come on. Like what are we doing here? Like, and this is where I'm like, you'll still be open minded, right? Like I still have beliefs. I'm open to change, but there's certain things I'm not. I'll stand firm on. Because one of these reasons I started recording was because someone on YouTube called Rin just posted. You guys check him out. Oh my God, I gotta keep adjusting my seat. But you guys check him out. But there's honestly things I would say I disagree with him now. Cool, thanks. But it's almost like, remember, we have our thoughts and our beliefs too. But it's like you can't be so like, I'll say fragile, where it's like, oh, someone says one thing, so it's like, remember, you have your perspective too, right? But there's also like the intellectual, like, because remember, you can understand something emotionally, but there's still like physical laws and things that take place in this world. I can't just manifest that I can drink, a bunch of alcohol and my liver is just, not going to get damaged by that. There's certain laws and rules we still have to abide by. But I feel like anyone that's like retention isn't real, is that they don't have the awareness yet. They don't know about Kundalini chakras and all that stuff. Because you recognize that stuff's very real. There are people that have dedicated their whole lives to kind of developing those things, and and you have to have that awareness. But that's something like the ego. It holds people back where they don't even think it's their ego. They just acknowledge it as truth. Someone is like, there is no God. That's also their ego, because if you can remember, like everyone has different. There's times where your ego takes over, and there's times where like you can really let it sit back. But having this fine balance, it's like this is a game you're probably going to play for. We'll play for our whole lives, but it's definitely important. Like there are times the ego, you have to really like check yourself and be like, oh, I don't know anything. No, even for me, it was like I thought I understood meditation, but you get the awareness and like, damn, like this is actually only the beginning. even with the Bible too, it's like all the stories and that stuff. It's like it's a bunch of information, and that's why like it's gonna take time, even though time is an illusion. Like, and that's something learn much about that whole instant manifestation thing. At least the way I understand it now, it's like you vibrate so highly, or you have so much prana or life force that the things you want instantly just like attract to you. But that's more so. It's a few things. It's the belief, how you take care of yourself. Like it's a bunch of little factors, but it's also the genuine like resting in God, like, and the fact that you're not separate from them too. I think that's where the power comes from. Because let's think of anime, right? If you think of anime, usually like the literal gods in most anime, like they can quite literally bend reality, but you kind of recognize we also have the ability to do that, like literally, and not that it's scary, but like you actually have the power to do that too. But the ego has you think like, oh, you're not as powerful, like, oh, I can't do that. Like I'm telling you, like, genuinely, like one of the biggest self-limiting beliefs most people probably have is like the stuff in the Bible that Jesus does where he heals the sick, all that stuff. It's innately possible, but once you recognize like the true power that comes from stillness, it makes a lot of sense. Because from that genuine stillness, you'll be able to break like laws of reality. Like, but the problem is getting to that point. The ego is just it's an everyday battle. But you also have to have that like quiet stillness to even remotely do that. But people find it like everything I've seen in anime, a part of me is like, that's possible, right? But before I was like, oh, it's just anime, like it's cool, but we could never do that. And you think back to any inventor, let's like Nikola Tesla, Isaac Newton, people 1,000 years before them would have been like, there's no way, that's not possible. And I'm like, there's power that comes in that, knowing like quite literally anything's possible. Like let's think of it like this, right? You have like let's really think about it. People have learned about Kundalini meditation, right? Like something that amazing, or even the Buddha, like a real person. As you manifesting a girl that you like, or like hitting the pure in the gym, or like or even like starting a business, like all these things are very like simple in comparison to like master over the mind. And one could argue you could do these things. You can have the business, be a successful entrepreneur without even resting in that awareness the whole time, and still operate from the ego. But take it a step further. Imagine someone that operates, from their actual like divine nature and not from the ego. And I'm sure there's people out there that are at that point, but I don't think they're in the positions of power or wealth that everyone kind of like glorifies. And that's where I'm like, you'll get your own perspective too. Because it's not that I don't want those things, but I recognize like mastery over the mind and the body. That's actually more important, because you'll get all your goals from achieving that goal. Anyone that can genuinely sit in stillness, you're gonna get everything you want. And I mean very easily, because like, I work in sales. So the way I think about it is, okay, every interaction I have, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm only listening to them. So quite literally, you'll intuitively know the objections, but like so fast where it's like you'll know exactly what to say with no delay too. And this is gonna get to my next point. When you're really aligned, and I think of it like how when Goku first started in Super Saiyan, it took a lot of effort, a long time. But then he was able to like train in Super Saiyan, or that becomes your default state. You can think of alignment like that too, kind of like there are hints and like sparks of greatness. Like the reason I was able to ask project for the first time is because something told me and meditate now, but there was no delay, so I didn't like think about the ego, and I didn't like pause and think, oh, what if like, oh, I'm tired, or like all the thoughts disappeared. The only desire was to meditate, and I did that, and I asked projected not once but twice, and it was fucking insane, guys. Like I'm talking about like, and the way I know it was astral projection is because I remember as a kid, right? I think it was once, like I'm laying down in bed, right? And I'm trying to go to sleep, but it feels like I'm rocking, like in a fucking hammock. And I have a friend, Emily, who described the same thing. I'm like, damn, it's crazy. But I was like, no, it was like I was rocking, right? Like I'm laying down flat. My actual body is still, but it feels like I'm moving. And that happened twice in my meditation session for about 10 to 15 seconds. It was like my soul was trying to move. I guess I don't know how to like say this in a way that makes sense. It's like, or I get my conscious was like briefly linked with my soul so well. Where like the soul was trying to like ask to project, and the only way I can interpret that was as like swaying, but I'm still like I'm not making this stuff up. I'm telling you, it's really crazy. But that's why I'm like I encourage everyone to meditate, really meditate. To take care of your body. But make sure you're working out, make sure you're eating right, but make sure you meditate. If you can do these three things consistently, you're gonna get everything you want and more. You know, because I feel like once you have all those three powers, the three types of yoga we talked about earlier, you can like really move and attack. Because I know for me, it's like it's like always something to do now. Like I don't understand if anyone's like I'm bored. There's always something to do. Like you should be either training your mind, spirit, or your literal body, or you're probably working because you got to provide for your family and stuff. I'm like, there's no way you should be bored. There's always something to do. Like you should be watching lectures, reading the Bible. Like there's always something to do. So, and that's where I'm like, I'd say another benefit I didn't talk about was like the standards. They really do raise when you're on retention because it's like I just could never I could never there's always something to do because you got to keep sitting that point. Remember, it has to be an obsession, and this is where I'm like anyone that calls you crazy or it's like oh you're weird or you're different. And this the ego holds you back so much because for years, guys, I'm telling you, I'll get clowns for being different, being so obsessed about my health. But I'm like, the ego, it thinks that's a bad thing. No, that's the best thing. You need to be obsessive about this because from that obsession delusion, it makes you immune to the ego because you're not gonna react oh they think I'm weird. You're almost like I don't care because it's like they're people. They're not even attempting the path. They're gooning, not to put anyone down, but they're good and they're on a different path than you. So it's like the words they say, their vibration, it should not affect you. If you're here and they're here, why are we letting them bother us? It's like, and that's the confidence that no one talks about. And you develop it enough, you'll be, I mean, 1,000% okay alone, right? Because there's still a part of me like, ooh, like I need the girl, but every day that part it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then when that part disappears, what's going to happen is like now you'll actually want a partner, but you won't need a partner. And women will sense that, literally. I've learned there's quite women I know that are like, it's very easy for them to pick up on that stuff. So when you change, they're going to notice it too. Everyone will notice it, but women specifically, they will notice it. Because be prepared, the attention is coming. Everything you want is coming. So like you have to genuinely be prepared. So I will leave you guys with that. This probably been the longest video, low key, but we definitely cooked. I actually recorded yesterday, but my phone died. I think I might upload the first part, call it lost tapes or something, but whatever if I can find it. But yeah, I'll leave you guys with that. So keep retaining, don't goon, don't watch porn, don't do any of that dumb shit. Stay locked, keep seeking the path, and yeah, day 85. That's the wraps. All right. Hold on, let's see. Damn, 13 minutes.